Welcome back, and we're about to have a hopefully interesting episode
Yes, we
today
are. Yes, we are.
of the Less of a Man podcast. We're gonna try to be very respectable and sensitive to the times when we're having this, but we're gonna have I think it's gonna be a spirited debate about our topic, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But as always, we're gonna start off with our mental health check-in. EJ.
I am doing great. There's some tension in the room, but I'm feeling great and just smiling in spite of. This has been a good week. We're going to be talking a little bit about police, so I'll just bring my story in. We've already had this conversation. I just want to say it. Ronan has just rolled his eyes at me, but that's okay. You get your police vote. So,
This ain't even starting off right.
The sad thing is, I actually agree with you.
Yeah.
I know, but why did you roll your eyes? I don't understand that. But in my week, we had this police officer come into the Starbucks, have their mask on, and then take their mask off. We politely asked them to replace their facial covering because that's how we have to call it at Starbucks. They not only refused to do that, look us in the eye, open their drink, stir their drink, put their drink back in, throw their trash away, and walk slowly out of the store without even lifting a finger to put their facial covering back on. They were from the Atlanta Police Department.
Oh, calling them out.
So, I mean, that was just interesting. I had a good week. I feel like it was very busy, went really fast, but other than that was my,
Okay.
high point.
And just to let people behind the curtains, before every podcast, Sharon and EJ get into it. Like almost every single one of my line roll.
No, you're not lying.
They
go for like an hour over the same topics.
They argue every time, so that's the tension in the room. Shar, what about your mental health?
How you doing, EJ?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
You seem a little agitated.
I'm okay. I'm good. Okay, mental health. Mental health check. I guess the end of the week actually ended pretty good. I actually had my first interview, in-person interview, for the first time next week. So I'm actually kind of excited about that. It also has been a real rough week, because of course of the verdict that came down. Not verdict, but just what's the word for it? Decision that came down, I guess, in the Breonna Taylor case. It kind of had me in very conflicting place right now. So I'm just trying to process my thoughts. I had a rant on Facebook that kind of just that made me feel better for a moment, but
it was very long.
It was real long, so yeah.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah. When where it said show more, I hit it and I was like, I'm not about to read all this.
I felt like you should have read it. It really was like
I had to call him and be like, "Are you okay?"
No, and then he's talking to himself in third person. And I was like, I'm not reading
Wow.
So I did the third person.
Yeah. No, he's saying Shar feels this. Shar feels this.
It was really like not upset. It just
isn't that like a part of like dissociative property?
It really was. I really was having a moment, honestly. So yeah, and I feel better now, but it's just a lot going on in my mind, and I think I probably need a therapy session because I need a moment to just process all the thoughts that's in my mind. But overall,
and crying.
I don't know if it's a crying session. It's just a process a lot of things
like
in my mind.
In the face
Yeah, like swing at the air type.
You just gotta ignore the baby.
Oh,
contact with a baby.
Yeah,
with your punches.
You know where I draw it from.
Right.
Don't be a menace to society.
Oh yeah, I forgot. But I forgot.
Oh,
I got it now. Yeah.
He always was random.
I'm going for the more boys in the hood, swing at the air.
Yeah, the swing in the air after.
I think I'm gonna go for that. So, shout out to what's his name?
After Ricky got shot.
After Ricky got shot. I think it was before Ricky got shot. Actually,
that was after they got stopped by the police.
Yeah, exactly. And he went. It was actually a good moment for him, I guess, because of how it ended. But still. So maybe I should swing in the air, which needed a room and see where it goes. So, but overall, it's been a good week. So,
all right. What about you, Ro?
It's been a interesting week. Everything that happened this week, and my allergies are killing me. And Edward and Shar going back and forth about the same thing every week.
every week. It's the same thing.
I don't really be trying to argue. That's the only thing.
But you said insulting things. That's the crazy part about it. I feel like it's insulting.
So back to my mental health.
Okay, you're not gonna do that. Go ahead, take your moment. So.
And now I'm a little stressed because now our engagement photo shoot got pushed up and we got a time crunch now. So it is what it is.
Sundown.
Yeah, at sundown.
I can't believe both of y'all. Literally, that was the time expectation at sundown.
You have your engagement
Who
photo.
does that?
And how dare you not know what sunset is?
How do you not know? How dare you? I don't even know that, and I'm the gay one, so I don't expect y'all to know that.
So the context is you have your engagement photo shoot today. We have our maternity photo shoot today, and both of our significant others said that the time was at sunset, but didn't give an actual time. So then she texted me and said 4:30?
Between 4:30 to 5:30.
Which is not sunset.
It's an hour drive from our house to where we're going to be. So we have to be there at 4:30 so we can do the shoot between 4:30 and 5:30 because it's overcast. And it's like a drive.
Which is not sunset.
It's not sunset. Well, it's sunset-ish. How about that?
It is not sunset-ish.
Is like, isn't that's like around 7?
Like
yes, it's around 7. Yes,
7 o'clock. Yeah.
So, my mental health. I think I'm kind of on the line with Shar. Man, I had to sit back and think about this week. Man, it has been a rough year for Black people.
Oh, yes, it has.
And to sit you got to understand all we have seen, right? We have seen white people go ballistic on Black people, calling all types of racial stuff. That's where we get the cancel culture from. We got people calling cops on Black people, hoping that something will happen to them.
Forgot about that.
We're talking about countless shootings, and we can argue the legality of these shootings, but we're watching Black people die on camera right in front of us. Not only that, we got the NFL, where again I said in the later podcast that these guys were locked in unity. Nothing about a flag, nothing about politics, and people were booing them. You know what I'm saying? We got the NBA making their stance, but people are still criticizing them no matter what they do. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like LeBron got called weak, fake woke weak, when he has a school that he's putting out for people.
And even before now, shut up and dribble.
Yeah, shut up and dribble. Yeah, and you gotta we could go to our social medias and we have all types of things that we're seeing, even down with Chadwick Boseman, to see that, and that was our superhero, that was our representation, the emotional conflicts of us is crazy. We just had the Crown Act passed, which is crazy that the Crown Act even needed to be passed. And for those people who don't know what the Crown Act is for, it's illegal to discriminate somebody based on their hair. The fact that we even have to have that.
Say that out loud.
Yeah, to say it out loud. Kamala Harris. That should have been a monumental moment for us. And to see how we had to actually argue with people, is she Black enough? The things that we have to go through, I think is real crazy. I'm happy that I don't have to go into an office because I don't even know how I would kind of do it. You know what I'm saying? The biggest thing for me that happened this week, I say all this to say this, kind of the final straw for me was Wells Fargo. And
we talked about that, yeah.
The CEO, Charles Scarf, blamed the lack of diversity on the bank on a very limited pool of Black talent to recruit from. The big issue with this for me is I bank at Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo is my bank, and now I'm fuck, I gotta go. Mm-hmm. If that's your viewpoint, then you can't have my business. So, literally everything we go through, you know what I'm saying? And the crazy thing, let me go back to the crazy thing about it is my banker at Wells Fargo is a Black guy. So it's he got to get punished in this situation. But I was the mental health of I think Black people right now, man, it's kind of crazy right now. Yeah. So maybe you're right, Shar, and therapy is the key.
Man, I'm sad now.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry.
Why so quiet?
because it's a reality of us, and I think that people don't really understand. And not only is it society, it's we're attacked by our own. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So we're attacked by our own. So even look at the Kamala Harris situation. We're attacked by our own. Everything, we're not on one accord with anything. and it's like we got to get opposition from both sides, and I just think for us, it's like look at Tory Lanez, right? Tory Lanez, he put an Instagram post saying he was going to basically stop his silence at it was 12 o'clock at night Eastern time, and this fool puts out an album.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he did.
He puts out a record.
Yeah.
No, it was an album.
It was a whole album?
It was a whole album.
It was a record, yeah.
No, it was an album. He puts out an album, and then now people are like, well, maybe he didn't do it. And it's like...
So who did it? Did you do it yourself?
Well, there was another person that apparently, I forget the name, but I just read something on social media, basically not saying that it's her fault that it happened, but saying that she's a drunk, essentially.
Yes.
And that she becomes a different person when she drinks.
Yes.
And he, apparently the night before, he was there with him. Some person
the best friend. It was the best friend that was in the car with him. They're saying that what I've heard, and this might not be what you're talking about, but I heard that they were arguing over Tory Lanez, and then somehow she was wrestling with Tory Lanez with the gun and somehow shot herself. Is the theory I heard, but she got shot in the back of her foot, which doesn't.
How'd that work?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. But I just think it's funny how quickly we're trying to go to Tory Lanez.
It was a designer who had I think. He said he was around them the day before the incident happened, right. And saw that she was really drunk and being really aggressive toward him and arguing with him. Basically trying to paint the picture the other way around.
Yes.
So I don't know what the validity of that is, but
this is my problem. So I was talking to my wife this morning about it, and I said, let's just say Tory Lanez is innocent. Let's just argue for purposes. Then why wouldn't he say that at the very beginning? Why when Megan Thee Stallion said Tory shot me, does he not say anything?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So all that to me is a moot point, and he doesn't read the room, especially after the Breonna Taylor decision comes down. The next day he does this.
Yeah, it was tone deaf.
Yeah, it was completely tone deaf, and it's just the duality of black people and what we kind of battle with internally and culture to society to family. They would
It's also what we're willing to accept. It's almost like we reject and accept total contradictions of the same situation sometimes, and we just confuse ourselves in terms of what we want to accept and what we want to reject, and it's kind of confusing sometimes.
Yeah, because it's like the R. Kelly situation in this where we're because I'm a fan of R. Kelly, I just can't believe it. Mm-hmm. I still blast him, and it's just our morality, that should never be the situation. We shouldn't be playing Tory Lanez. We shouldn't give him the time of day. Tory Lanez could have came out and just said, that's not true, I'm innocent, and I'm going to let it play out in court. That's all he could have said. Mm-hmm. He didn't have to, he don't owe us an explanation, but he could have just did that. But to sit here and come out with an album and try to monetize the situation.
Yeah. And then we buy it.
Yeah. That's also the issue. So, getting into black women and, things happening to them. So the Breonna Taylor situation, came down, and I was by my computer watching the live one. Were y'all watching live too?
No. Yeah, I was watching the press conference.
I didn't get to watch it.
You didn't watch it?
I watched it after you called. I was doing something for Edward, and then after that, I just went ahead and...
So it's Edward's fault?
Yeah, he was asking me to do
everything seems to be my fault.
He was asking me to do some re-recording, so I went ahead and did it, and then you called me. That's why I went downstairs to look at it.
So that couldn't have waited?
Huh?
That couldn't have waited?
Actually, no, it couldn't have waited. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I know from we kept calling each other back and forth.
Yeah, me and Raw were calling each other back and forth about the situation. So just for people who don't know, I'm just going to do a quick recap of it, and then we're going to get into it. So Breonna Taylor was a 26 black medical worker who was shot and killed by 3 officers: Jonathan, Mattingly, Brett Hackerson, and Miles Cosgrove, when they returned fire after being shot first by Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker. According to Walker, he thought they were intruders and fired a warning shot at one of the officers' legs. He claims that the officers did not announce who they were before entering. The officers claimed that they did announce themselves before entering. Only Brett Hackerson was fired and later indicted on 3 counts of wanton endangerment for blindly shooting into the apartment, and not the actual death of Breonna Taylor. This has led to widespread protests across the nation. Sergeant Jonathan Mattingly said, "I know we did the legal, moral, and ethical thing that night." The family was awarded $12 million by Louisville officials. So that's the quick overview of what happened. So we all know that the decision came down that it was only Hackinson is the one that got indicted, or wanton, endangerment. Raw, since you are a resident officer here, how did the attorney general or the the grand jury come to this decision?
Well, listening to his press conference, he stated that they gave them the elements of the crimes were homicide all the way down to, I guess, wanton, which is
reckless endangerment,
which is really reckless endangerment for full and felony reckless endangerment for Georgia. So I guess they looked at the elements, the law, and came with the decision that the only thing they can charge him with was the reckless conduct.
Why is it not murder that so many people wanted murder?
Okay, so in this situation, they were serving a search warrant, and then that's something I got to clear up too. Like I see a lot of people talk about, the person they were looking for was already detained and all that stuff, but there's a difference between an arrest warrant and a search warrant. An arrest warrant is for a person. A search warrant is for evidence.
Absolutely.
So all they had to do was establish a nexus between that person and that location.
Absolutely. Which they did. What they did was they were hitting several addresses. That would have to be one of the addresses because her ex-boyfriend was getting packages from that house. That's what had her address on there. So they were at the right place. Go ahead. Finish.
So there's other speculation about her being involved in his enterprise or whatever, but that's neither here or there. So the search warrant was obtained. It was a no-knock warrant. After talking to supervisor told them to knock and announce. They claimed they knocked and announced. The attorney general found one person that said he heard them knock and announce. Even a reporter said that they found one person that heard them knock and announce. They did serve at an early time, which is normal for some search warrants. And
it was like 12 o'clock at night?
12:40
at night, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, they had a legal right to be there. They made entry when no one answered, so they forced entry, which means they pretty much knocked the door off. He fired at them as they made entry, which at that point they had the right to defend themselves, and they shot back. And when they shot back, one of those, well, she was hit like what, 5 to 6 times?
It was 6 times because one of them, I think one was like in the foot or something.
Yeah. So when they fired back, she was shot. Now the Hackensack, who was outside, heard the shots and shot into the apartment, which from every training I've done, I've been told you don't shoot into the house when your stack is inside, because you run the risk of hitting your own people inside.
Yeah, and just put context on it. He shot into a window and a door that was covered, so he didn't know what he was aiming at. He was just shooting.
Yeah, he was just shooting.
So it was basically reckless endangerment.
Right.
So that's why they came with the 3 counts. I think they did it, if I'm not mistaken, they did it for the 2 officers that was inside and Breonna Taylor. They didn't charge him for the boyfriend. That's how you get the 3 counts.
Okay.
So, and there's a lot of legality that goes into it, but basically they were doing their job, and being fired upon, they returned fire, and someone instantly got killed.
So my question is, and probably go more into details about the search warrant. What would they have to establish in order to actually obtain a search warrant?
Yeah, before you answer that question, also people know when they searched the house, there was nothing illegal in the house.
Right. They found nothing.
Yes, they found nothing. No money, nothing. But go ahead.
Right. I mean, that happens sometimes. But they had to establish a nexus between her boyfriend, or her ex-boyfriend at the time, and that location. So there had to be some type of investigation where they did surveillance, CS buys, undercover buys, or had some type of information that they can put into the search warrant to establish that illegal activity was happening at that location. So for me, I know search warrants are one of the hardest things, especially for narcotics, are one of the hardest things to get because judges don't like signing off on anything that's going to intrude on the Fourth Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's why the FBI is investigating the search warrant because it could be a constitutional violation.
Okay.
So, with that said, so basically everything had to be in line for them to get that search warrant unless they lied. And they would need that nexus to prove that something was going on there.
And then typically, like for a typical search warrant, what is the time period that it takes them to be able to establish and get that search warrant in terms of the surveillance and the information that they need to?
It depends on the case. It can take weeks. It can take months. It could take years. It depends on what type of case you're doing and how big the investigation is. I don't know how big their investigation was or how long it took them to do it, but it's going to take time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen the next day, anything like that. You have to build that nexus, and you have to have supporting evidence to get that search warrant.
So from what I read, and I'll let you go after this, from what I read, they caught the search warrant because he was receiving packages from the house, and the family said later on that those were Snickers. Is that enough to get, or would they have to have more?
They need more than that.
Okay.
They need more than just having packages. If they did say it was packages, they had to determine what the packages were sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So like it would have to be like they intercepted a package and it was narcotics at one point, and then they allowed it to go to the location and see him receive it there.
Okay.
So it would have to be more than just packages. They had to do a full investigation.
Go ahead, DJ.
So, with the packages, I think in the police memo that was leaked, right, they had cited that the inspector said that it was a suspicious package. But when the inspector was spoken to about it, he said he had no record of that. So that was something that was cited as an occurrence, which was actually false.
Not necessarily. People lie.
Okay.
So you're saying the guy lied?
I'm saying the inspector lied.
It can go either. And that's what I'm saying. Not necessarily. I'm not saying anyone did or didn't, but it could have happened. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. People don't always say everything that they said before.
Okay. So that goes, we can go back to we can go back to that later because we also have to talk about the one witness that they had out of 12 people that they interviewed. So of 11 people said they heard nothing. One person initially said they heard nothing. 2 other interviews, then they changed their story. So we also have to talk about that as well.
Yeah, I can talk about that because I've had that happen to me.
Let's go back to the warrant itself. So tell us a little bit more about the different ways the warrant can be executed. So this one was
a no-knock.
A no-knock initially. So let's talk about so people can understand what a no-knock warrant is.
So basically, what a no-knock warrant would be that you believe if you knock and announce, it would either put yourself or others in imminent danger, or a large amount of evidence would be destroyed. Because when you knock, you have to give them a reasonable amount of time to answer the door.
Which they can flush evidence and all that stuff.
Before you enter the presence. So with a no-knock, it's basically just you walk up, hit the door, go in.
And just to clarify, in the police report, they said it was a no-knock warrant?
It was a no-knock, but when they went to their supervisor to execute he changed it and said,
they had to announce themselves.
Knock and announce yourself.
So they actually decided to do a knock even though they had the option of doing a no-knock.
I think
that's still the speculation. That's what they're saying, and they only found one person to say that they did. So, back to your point, when you said they interviewed 12 people, people don't always tell the truth in certain situations. Now, I'm not saying that they're lying. I don't know because I was not there. I don't know what they did, whatever. So they heard one person say that they had one person say that they did knock and announce. Even a reporter said that they found one person.
I think it was the same person. But
it might be the same person.
They interviewed multiple times and changed the story.
Right. So, things vary with that. I take that as a grain of salt because not everybody. Because I've had it happen where you said you did something and majority of people are like, you didn't do that, but you know that you did it and they're lying. Because I've been in internal affairs. because most people lied and said that I didn't do something that I did. But luckily for me, it was recorded.
Yeah, but I think the thing that we got to take that seriously, because we've also seen that a lot of the stuff on the police report wasn't true.
Right.
So with her saying there was no injuries, for them to say on the police report that it wasn't a forced entry when it was proven that it was a forced entry. So
yeah, it was a forced entry. No matter what if you had to knock and announce or whatever.
But I'm saying on the police report said it wasn't. So,
but that determines what they constitute a forced entry.
So you don't think a ram to the door is in a forced entry?
For me, yes, but I don't know what their department constitutes as a forced entry.
So I guess what's throwing me off is that
how is it different between police departments for forced?
I would just think a ram to the door would be forced entry universal.
Because legally there's a definition for it, right?
Different departments do things differently.
But when you say no knock, it's that either way, if you have the warrant to go in and no one's responsive, at that point the expectation is for police officers to enter the premises.
For a no knock, yes.
Yeah, so I guess
I'm just gonna hit the door.
I guess that's where I'm getting confused.
But even if it's a knock one, don't they still, if no one's responding,
they still hit the door?
Right.
So I don't know what they constitute a forced entry. For us, that would be a forced entry, and you got to do a report on that.
But go ahead, Char. What's your question?
So, and maybe I missed it the first time I asked it. So the paperwork, we know the paperwork definitely said no knock.
Yeah.
Okay. So they had the option of actually going in unannounced.
Right.
So if they were to knock, they're actually doing more than what. Give it more of a courtesy than what they would have given, considering that the paperwork gave them the option of no knock.
Yeah, I guess. Because the paper said no knock, it was on the supervisor to say, you know what, we're going to knock and announce, which means, he probably thought of this situation. And unfortunately, it still turned out the way it did, but he probably said, you know what, we're going to knock and announce so there's no discrepancy.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
so
there's still a different discrepancy. But the biggest thing is what's going to happen is we're going to have to wait till the FBI finish their investigation so we can know what exactly was in that warrant and what was done to establish the probable cause for them to be there.
But I think that's important because the article I read made it seem like it was no knock at first, and then like the judge changed it or some official changed it to a knock. To announce. So I don't. And I'm trying to find it.
If a judge signed it as a no knock,
the judge signed it as a no knock.
Yeah.
Which, if you're looking at what's required to get a no knock, it was not legal, based on the information that was given. Because they cited 4 other different warrants, and all they did was copy and paste the same information from all of it. And as you said, to get a no knock, you would have to be able to have suspicion or evidence that supports that there would be harm to the police officers entering, or that the people would be trying to get rid of evidence, which in the evidence presented, of course, there's an affidavit that probably has way more stuff than what we actually really know. But from that, it doesn't seem like that's a legal no knock. But at the end of the day, whether it was knock or no knock, it doesn't really matter.
You said legal no knock. If you can present to a judge what your findings and they sign off on a no knock, it's still legal. There's different criteria. For us, there's a checklist you have to go through to get a no knock.
But it was a Supreme Court ruling, so it's illegal. The law says this is what you need to be able to get it, and it wasn't presented.
But you don't know that for sure because you don't have the affidavit to see if it was illegal. So that's the whole investigation that the FBI is doing. So if they go through the search warrant affidavit and everything that was presented, the case file, and they determined that it was a violation, then that's when we can say for sure it was a violation. But we can't say that until we have all the information.
Right. So I want to ask you guys, how did you guys feel when the actual verdict went down? Because for me, I kind of was like preparing myself for this the whole time. Like I actually was shocked any of them got indicted. And me and Raw talked all the time. If anybody was going to get indicted, it was going to be Hackinson because of his reckless shooting. I didn't think anybody was going to be indicted, especially when they did Louisville as a state of emergency and they start boarding up City Hall.
Right.
I was preparing for almost. It felt to me similar to when I found the Trayvon Martin verdict, similar to that, where it was like society history has shown us it was going to go this way, and then when we see it, it's like for me it was a whole range of emotion for me for it. So I want to know, how do you guys feel when the actual decision came down? Who wants to go?
And then, hold on a second. Before we get into that, I want to go back to your question about the thing. Well, and then another thing would be also the officers that executed the search warrant were the ones that didn't write the warrant.
Right.
So they're going off of good faith from the person that wrote the warrant.
Exactly. Which is, I mean, I think all of that comes down to sloppy police work. That's what I put it in. Is there a legal basis for what you did? Yes, there is, but it's sloppily executed.
Well, I guess we don't know yet.
We don't know that.
From the evidence that we have right now, my opinion is it's sloppy police work.
But then you're not doing the right. You're not doing due justice for it. But you don't have the full evidence to determine to make a educated.
No, I mean, but we can't just like we're talking. We were just talking about Tory Lanez earlier. We have enough that we don't. Everything hasn't come out, but we have enough to make an opinion. Of course, your opinion can change with new information.
Right,
but as of right now,
I think
right now what we're doing is both sides.
We do it all the time.
Yeah, both sides are doing the evidence based off of their opinion of what it is. So we really won't know for sure until everyone do their investigation to say that it can go either way. Is what we're saying. So we're not saying we want it to go a particular way. We're just saying we just don't know until we get all the evidence which way it's gonna go.
All right. So back to Did you want to say something before we?
No, you did.
Okay. So back, how did you guys feel when the verdict came down, though?
I honestly had to catch up because I was working, so I wasn't really privy to seeing what was happening. I was getting like messages from y'all, and I was trying to do too much at work to even focus. So I had to catch up, and I think it was different for me only because I think if I had caught it at that moment, I would have had a different reaction. But also going about how history has kind of presented itself to us with these situations time and time again. Most of the time, either they're not indicted or they're indicted on a lesser charge. So it wasn't like a whole array of emotions for me because I had my mind elsewhere. It just is kind of disappointing sometimes. And I think it's disappointing because we don't understand the law. So a lot of things that happen, we don't understand why, but then when you have to look at the law and what it states and is it right, then you have to kind of change your mindset about some things. So for me, it's just disappointing, but I understand the things that have been presented to me from conversations I had about the law.
Right. What about you, Shar?
I guess when I first saw it, I was emotional, but I was emotional for a different reason. I was emotional at the fact that here we have another situation where another, I guess, black person is killed and we're not getting the justice that we feel we would deserve. But a part of me tried to remove the emotion from it and then look at it totally from, I guess, a case-by-case basis. And in a sense, because we were talking about it so much amongst our group, the verdict itself didn't surprise me. But the result, the results that we always get in terms of what we expect in terms of black individuals getting justice is the frustrating part that I had to, I guess, wrap my mind around. Because I think even though there are some out there who can. There may be evidence out there that can justify the police actions. It still hurts to see another black person killed by the hands of the police. And that's what I'm trying to grapple with in terms of how to differentiate someone being killed by the police and the police actually being able to do their job. So that's kind of where I'm at, trying to figure out that part. So.
Okay. And what about you, Ron?
I mean, I was prepared. I mean, we all talked about this the whole time. And I was prepared for both sides. I mean, it sucks that someone did lose their life and it hurts. But then also being on the other side, someone that does serve warrants on a regular basis, it's a dangerous job. So, I mean, like we spoke about it several times, and I told you, the only person that's probably going to get charged would be him. And it would be for the same charge that he got charged with. The only thing is that warrant is really what's going to play the biggest role. And even if there's a Fourth Amendment violation, the officer that wrote it is going to be the one who's going to have to answer for that.
Yes. Yep.
So, and the story's not over. It's still going. This is just part one. We're just going to have to wait for the final act.
Yeah, I think I felt bad for society, man. And I was just like, man, I don't want to see, my people in pain. I don't want to have to explain this to my daughter or even us to have debates. Like I said earlier, like going on social media and seeing people justify why black people deserve to get beaten or killed is really difficult for me. Even the officer Mattingly who got shot, he made this statement. Good guys are demonized and criminals are canonized. And I think it's so tone deaf because it's tone deaf in the sense that Walker wasn't a criminal here. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? He was a legal gun owner.
And he even got an additional license that's not even required in the state to conceal carry.
Right. There's speculations about Breonna Taylor, but as of right now, they didn't find anything at the house. So when I'm not saying good guys are demonized is wrong. He can feel that way, but this to point them as criminals already, that's the part I have the problem with of this statement, man. And I think it was tone deaf, and I think I just hurt for society, man.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Sharp.
But to your point, in terms of what he said, I think that come across as tone deaf. I absolutely 100% agree with that. I also think it's unfair for us to criminalize Breonna Taylor. But I think what a lot of people aren't talking about, and this is the other half of what I try to process this in my mind, is the ex-boyfriend. And that's where I don't think we're just talking about his role enough in terms of what role he played in her death as well.
Right. Let me add something real quick to that. Kenneth Walker, again, is Breonna Taylor's boyfriend. He actually, in his statement from the article I read, thought it was the ex-boyfriend breaking in.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So when he said that he didn't hear, he thought it was him.
Yeah.
And that's why he was responding to comments.
Yeah.
So back to his statement. Yeah, it is tone deaf. I mean, being on both sides, you look at things differently. You try to look at it as objective. And as in situations like this, we both sides have a tendency of running to each other's corners and taking a stand.
Right.
So he feels like he's being attacked, so he has to lash back out. Personally, for me, you let everything play out. You know you did what you needed to do. Mm-hmm. You know you did the right thing. Just let it play out. I mean, don't add fuel to the fire because you don't understand anybody else's pain. Nobody understands your pain and what you're going through because no one can understand your job unless they did your job. And no one can understand how that family feels or the society feels unless you're in that society to feel that pain. Right. So you have to understand to have some type of compassion and mediation in between. We can't talk about her criminal past at that point when...
What was her criminal past?
All I've heard was allegations that she might be with.
Right, so there's not a criminal past.
So it's not.
Just a suspect. So, yeah, I just like to be clear because I feel like that's misleading and that's the thing that I absolutely hate when people talk about stuff. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's the thing that actually really pisses me off is because we're saying her criminal past, she doesn't have a criminal past. There's no record. We say Kenneth Walker's criminal past. He doesn't have a criminal past.
No, he has nothing.
Let's just be very clear. I think it's important.
But let's also add the fact that her ex-husband, ex-boyfriend,
was heavily
involved in a situation that possibly killed an innocent, resulted in an innocent person losing their life.
Exactly.
And that's the part I feel like we're leaving off. And I think, and we can get into it in terms of
absolutely
what I mean with that. Yeah,
there's nothing that. So the investigation was done on that. So what he's talking about is there was a car in December 2016, that she rented out, and she allowed her ex Glover to use the car. She loaned it to him. Eventually, a person ended up dead in that car. Investigation was done. Nothing linked her to that. She was unaware of the death. So we can't use that at all to say that, okay, well, now she's like, there's nothing. So I think what you have to do, you have to talk about the facts, right? So we can talk about all we want, that she was associated with someone that was a drug dealer. I get it. Might it be naive of us to say she didn't know a little bit about what's going on, but can we also say that maybe she didn't know everything that was happening?
Oh, no, by no means. I don't say that to try to blame her.
Right. I'm just saying the association doesn't mean that she's also like guilty of being involved.
Because a lot of us would be guilty.
Exactly. Because my sister dated multiple drug dealers that were arrested on multiple occasions. One actually had her car, which was in my dad's name. He ended up like that. He was in my dad's name, and he ended up getting stopped while one of my nephews was in the car by police officers who had guns pointed at him, and the child was in the car. She had no idea of what he was doing. So I think it is okay to say that sometimes they may not know. Now, are there women that date drug dealers that know exactly what's going on? Absolutely. But at this instance, I think we just need to stick to the facts. And the facts are that it doesn't really link her to that.
All of us would be guilty because all of us know somebody. So all of us would be guilty in that case.
But sorry to interrupt. Go ahead back to your point.
I don't even. Well, I'm trying to unpack this. I don't say that to criminalize her.
We're not saying you are, but a lot of people are.
Yeah,
a lot of media is, especially right-wing media, is doing that.
Okay.
Because it helps their side. I mean,
it helps their
but that
point.
goes back to what I'm saying. We all run to our corners. Nobody wants to actually talk about the facts. You want to talk about speculation and what we heard, what we read, and all that stuff. But what you read all the time isn't the fact. It's not. And that's everything. We've got away from media being a true source. We've got to a point where media only puts out what's going to support their narrative. Right. And that's right and left.
Absolutely.
So the media is no longer unbiased.
At all.
So we don't know what's true, what's not anymore until all the facts are presented.
But also, in adding to that, this is not only media's fault. The cops have blood on their badges, and they have had a history again of abusing their power. So it's not like we just woke up one morning and just hate the cops. This is like, we can argue back and forth the legality of this case or any other case, Rashad Brooks, Jacob Blake. We can argue legality. The point is, we wouldn't be here if cops didn't have a history. So no, it might not be Rawlin Lord did it, but people in the past of abusing their power. I just want to say this because people always say the first cops were slave catchers. Not necessarily true. They're one of the first kind of forms of policing, but not first official police. But in that case, it was a group of people who were in charge of chasing down, apprehending, and returning slaves to their owners to provide a form of organized terror to slaves and to maintain a form of discipline for slave workers. So basically, these people's job was policing, was used as social control. So what I say is our history with police officers started this. So we can't just stay here and blame black people or blame media. Police have blood on their badges as well, and they have to account for that.
So to my point, we've had this discussion before when we had on our last podcast where we needed reform. And I always agree that we do need reform, as in aspect we can't police the same way that we policed 10 years ago, because it's not feasible for this time.
Right.
So my bigger issue is, not only do we need that, we need criminal justice reform, because criminal justice reform, the system was, let's be honest, not built for us, period.
At all.
The system wasn't built for us. It allowed things in the past to happen and people get away with it. and I quite understand how I'm looked at and all that stuff. I've been called a coon. I've been called a race baiter. I've been enslaving my own people and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But my thing is, I always ask you, what are you doing to change the system? If I don't work here and I can't be empathetic with what you do and how knowing what you go through,
Right.
and have a conversation with you, because none of this is personal for me. My job isn't personal. I don't take it home with me. I leave it at work.
Mm-hmm.
So even if I arrest a black man, I always have a conversation with them. Talk about anything. Because at the end of the day, if we fought, I chased you, whatever, none of that shit is personal. Because you trying to go home, I'm trying to go home.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing I can do is have a conversation with you at the end of the day. We talk about sports, all that stuff.
Well,
But you are right. There is a history. But the only way to change that is to get true reform and try to get
yes.
to change the system.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and I 100% agree. I'll let you talk after this.
Go ahead.
But hold on, I 100% agree with you. I'm just talking more of and we all have friends that do it, where they get on social media or whatever and act like they're not the system that they work for is not at fault and it's everybody else.
But
that's the only thing.
that's what I'm saying.
That's the
Everybody
problem, yeah.
runs to their corners.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yes.
I don't do that. My people I know don't do that.
Right.
Yeah. The people you know and you're social with don't do that. But that doesn't mean that there aren't people out there that do that.
Yeah, because
that's the thing. So like, if we want to get rid of those people, I personally feel more of us should become police officers because
right.
it helps root out those areas.
Right.
I don't, because most
yeah.
people can't handle what they're doing in their lives right now, and having this police officer would just make an even worse situation.
But then I
Most
think-
police officers, a big majority of police officers don't think have the mental capacity to even be there. And
No, I'm talking about people that want to do this job.
Right.
That need
You're talking about qualified people.
Yeah,
Qualified
qualified
people.
people that want to do this job, that need to do this job,
Wait.
and want to do it for the right reasons.
Right,
I know
right,
several people that do that, but you also have situations where people make stupid mistakes that cost people their lives, and you look back on it and be like, why would you do that?
Right.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm saying in this case is that's why I feel like you even pointed out. I feel like it wasn't a well executed warrant. Honestly, to just tell you the truth, I just don't feel like it was.
Why?
I feel like the timing was terrible.
Why?
Okay, so first of all, let's just talk about the point. Was she like considered a major like player in this deal, or
But they weren't there for her.
they were there for her.
They were there for evidence.
They were for
Evidence.
evidence from her place, right? And they had her
Yeah, but they
listed.
weren't there for her.
But-
You gotta understand.
Okay,
her
so
ex-boyfriend
let
was
me
using.
finish my statement
Okay.
first. They saw her as a soft target, right? That may have some type of association. It wasn't like she was like a major target in the investigation.
We don't know that.
So that is true. That was stated in the evidence that they have presented. It is true.
Did you see the affidavit?
Okay.
Did you see the
Every
affidavit?
single report.
Did you
I see the affidavit? No.
Then you don't know
No.
for sure
Okay.
that was what
So
it
we're just
is.
gonna play. We're just gonna pretend like the
No,
evidence
I'm not.
that is presented.
But,
isn't
okay,
true.
you
But
know,
that's
But that's not
the-
evidence. That's speculation. Until you see the actual affidavit,
She
which
was
is
cited as a soft target.
Did
That's
you
just.
see the affidavit?
Do you see it?
No, that's why I'm not
so
making a
then-
speculation.
But you are. You're making speculation that is not true.
okay.
I'm saying until we see it, we can't use that as
Okay.
fact.
Okay. Go ahead,
Okay,
Shar.
can we stop?
Hold on, go ahead, Shar.
This is
So-
frustrating.
Oh, were you
I
still
didn't even
going?
get to finish
Okay,
my
go
point.
ahead. Go ahead. Then Shar, you go.
If this is the case, we can't even have this conversation, period, because none of us saw the affidavit. But we have a lot of people reporting. We have police officers reporting certain things. We have attorneys reporting different things that they have the legal documents to see,
Right.
and they have put it out in statements. So yes, we can use
Do you
that.
think lawyers put out everything?
We have both sides of the lawyers saying similar things.
But everything's not
Okay,
out.
so at the end of the day, you can continue to do these points that you want to do, but that's also the same thing police officers did in this situation to further push their need to go do this warrant and execute it the way that they
Okay.
did. So
So
at the end of the day,
Why
my
do you-
point is,
Why do you feel the
I
timing
feel like
was
the
wrong?
timing at 12:40.
Do you know what time
was-
my head was?
Okay, I'm gonna finish my statement, and
Yeah.
you can say whatever you want to say, and that's completely fine. I feel like if she wasn't a major player in this investigation, it didn't really warrant for you to go at that time. I think that could have been better planned off. Number one. Number two, I mean, Do you really think the people that were doing the warrant that were not involved in the whole situation should have been the people that are actually going to serve it?
Okay, so I'll answer your first point first. One, you hit warrants at the most opportune time for you as a police department, where people are either asleep or at home. So that's why they did it at 12:40 at night. I hit warrants at 4 o'clock. I had a warrant yesterday at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Great.
So that's why you do it at that time.
Okay, but that doesn't mean that it's the best time.
No, it is. It is the best time for the simple fact that if you do it later in the day, you have more risk of people being outside, and you have more risk of people not being at home. You have more risk of people being up. You have more risk of people being out there that can cause harm to you.
Great.
So that's why it's done that early in the morning. It's a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then to your second point, which was your second point again?
Why I don't understand why the timing. My other thing was like there were. I mean, you tried to negate, and I just said there were some false claims by the police officers as well. That's all I said. But my
You asked if the people that
shouldn't have
hit the one.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm gonna tell you like this. I work for Atlanta Police Department. We have 3 units that can hit warrants. Only 3. Fugitive, Apex, and SWAT. Those are the only 3 units that can hit warrants. That doesn't mean that in the vast other units that we have, that they will not come to us, present an affidavit, and ask us to do a search warrant for them or an arrest warrant. They will come to those 3 units to do it. We have nothing to do with their investigation. All we need to see is the warrant, see that the judge signed it and a supervisor signed it. Sometimes we read over it to make sure the accuracy of it. But we were not involved in their investigation, so we don't know what's going on in their investigation.
But that wasn't my question.
No, you said with the people that were not involved in the warrant.
Do you think that it was a great decision for the person that actually is in the investigation to not be a part of it?
He was there. Daphne is always going to be there, but he might not be the one hitting the door.
That's what I'm saying.
But that's the thing. So you go into a department that maybe it was their who they ever have. These smaller departments, they have a designated team that hit doors. That's it. We have 3. We have a large department, and we only have 3 that hit doors. So he'll be there, but we were the only ones to hit it because we're high risk trained to hit doors. We're trained to. Not every police officer is trained to serve a warrant,
and that's a problem.
No, it's not.
I feel like that's the problem because if you're putting police officers in situations that they're not comfortable, they're not really like highly trained to do, then you're going to get an instance where they're going to react to certain things. Where if you have people that are trained, like you have SWAT's specifically trained in these kind of instances. Yes or no? Am I wrong? Am I understanding?
Okay, so you're asking for every police officer to be trained, to hit a high-risk warrant. Not everybody's tactically sound to do that.
Right.
So there's a reason why SWAT has tryouts. There's a reason why I go to training every other week for this. There's a reason when I was on Apex, we went every month for this. So you can't have 3,000 police officers be tactically trained.
We should, if they're going to serve warrants.
But then that goes back to the whole point of when you talk about militarizing the police department.
So my whole thing is I'm talking about just the outcome.
Can we stop this conversation?
Can I finish my point? Just because you're annoyed doesn't mean I don't need to get my message out and have the conversation. Because I think it's important for us to be able to have this. Just because you're uncomfortable doesn't mean someone should speak.
It's not that I'm uncomfortable. It just, what's the point at this point?
So my thing is saying you would understand my point if I could finish my statement.
Okay.
So my thing is, would it not be better? And whether I'm not saying that I'm just saying, I'm trying to think of a solution. Because as to Moore's point, we always talk about things, but we never talk about a solution to them. So I'm talking about a solution, which is the reason why I'm explaining this. So now you kind of understand. So would it not be better to have people that are trained to do these types of warrants to actually execute them? In this case,
that's the thing. We are trained to execute the warrants,
but not in this situation. These people. They said it, and the department said it. They're not specifically trained for this. They're not accustomed to doing it. They have a department in their area that does these often. So they have the experience to understand what to do. I'm just saying, would it not be a logical thing for police departments to train people and use those people? And it may not be realistic, and that's completely fine. I'm just trying to
So
think
you're
of
saying
outcomes.
that the ones that actually hit the door
yes,
were not trained?
We're not. That's not their daily thing. That's not their thing that they do all the time.
Okay, so in smaller departments, it's not. They don't have money. So with certain departments, you don't have money where you can have a full-time SWAT team, a full-time fugitive team, or a full-time, well, Apex, whatever, right? Then even here in Georgia, we have, like Douglasville. We went on Douglasville to hit a search warrant, to hit an arrest warrant. We went out there, dude barricaded himself in the attic. We had to get their SWAT to come out there. Their SWAT team is comprised of people from different sections in their department. So it's not a unified SWAT team like Atlanta is. Atlanta, we have a designated SWAT team. Dallas has a designated SWAT team. And all you do is train, and do stuff like that. So in smaller departments, I don't know how big their department is or what their funding is like.
Right.
It takes a lot of money to train people to do that kind of stuff. And they might not have the resources for that. So you basically have it's like having a volunteer fire department. You know what I mean?
That's what the problem is.
Yeah, so let's hold on. But let's
let me finish it.
Yeah.
So it's like they do go to training, they get training, but the funding isn't there to have them as a complete complete unit. So that's the thing. Like, so when we talk about defunding the police, this is another thing that we got to also think about.
Right.
We don't have enough. If you don't have enough funding to have a designated SWAT team, and you take money away, what you gonna do then?
Right.
You're gonna have this is how you have these situations. You know what I mean?
Okay, but this is why I wanted you to table this, because we're gonna have a specific conversation about reform and defund. So I wanted to save that.
And then don't listen to Morge
for that. But I think we do need to listen. Like,
we have to.
Why do you feel the way you do, Shar?
Because at this point we're not attacking the problem. It's that you just got the lower totem pole person fussing with the lower totem pole person. And what's the point? Like, it doesn't matter whatever Rawdon say or whatever Ed would say. Neither one of them are gonna think that the other person is actually there are enough resources available. The cops are not trained enough. And I think also we don't look at this from a completely big picture perspective.
Right.
Why were the cops there to begin with?
But we didn't even get to that.
No, why were they there?
They were doing the search
Well,
warrant.
Why were they doing the search warrant?
We said that.
Legal
said this
activity.
already.
There's a speculation that her ex-boyfriend was receiving packages.
I'm asking the question not because I don't know. Okay.
There was some information. There was some evidence that showed they might have had like a connection. So they wanted to get more evidence to support
for ongoing investigation.
Right.
I mean, it really all it was they're going there to collect evidence to support the ongoing investigation.
I'm aware of that. I'm asking
and then her connection possibly. That would be another.
Right. It may be another angle.
Let Shar finish.
Because of activities that her ex-boyfriend was doing.
Right.
Okay.
Cops show up, do it. Do you believe the cops did the best they could in whatever? Did they have intent to kill when they went there?
I don't.
As a cop, you feel like you were just in your 9 to 5.
I mean, I don't believe they went there to kill somebody. I mean, they went there to execute a search warrant.
But my point is,
and things went bad.
Okay.
But that's also what you train for. Like, you train for things going bad. So in an instance like that, for us, we're probably going to do the same thing. Is we hit the door, somebody shoots at us, we're going to return fire.
Well, that's not
while
really.
we return fire, we're backing out and holding it for, say, our SWAT team. That's our procedure.
Yeah, not necessarily procedure-wise, but you're clocking in, you're doing your 9 to 5. Is what pretty much you're doing.
Right.
Like, you're just there to do your job.
Right.
On the other end, you got someone who is intentionally doing illegal activity.
Which was not in the.
But was not.
So you want to blame?
So you
I don't want to blame any
Walker and Breonna
Taylor.
No. You want to blame the ex-boyfriend.
Ex-boyfriend.
Okay.
Not those two, because that's what you just did is what everyone is doing. So I make the bigger point to say is, instead of us just always wanting to blame just one side, in this case, there's enough blame to go around for everyone in terms of what happened. And the problem is that we're sitting here going back and forth about this and not coming up with a comprehensive plan to attack everything that needs to be done to fix our system. Because at the end of the day, like we say, everyone wants to run to their corner and ignore their dirty hand in terms of what's in causing these issues to happen. So you going back and forth between each other. At the end of the day, in a few months, we're gonna forget about this. We're gonna move forward, and then something else is gonna happen again. And we're still gonna have people in our community being impacted by drug dealers, and we still gonna have dirty cops not doing what they're supposed to do, and then the same stuff is gonna happen over and over again. So the question is, the bigger picture is, what do we do to fix our communities? What do we do to make sure that we're not afraid of the people that we need to police?
Well, the first thing, of course, has been brought up to the table is about the argument of defund, reform the police, and basically the thought process. We're not about to argue back and forth about defund and what it means and reform. We all know what reform is. Reform is just improving the police and whatever that means. So I just want to make sure we're not going to go on this back and forth of what it means. But what I'm saying is some aspects of that is one of them is that police being more accountable. That means that once you have lawsuits, like Breonna Taylor's family had a lawsuit, but the taxpayers paid that out. Yeah. So maybe it's up to the department to pay it out now. So now that they're more responsible for it, and
that does happen. So like you can bring a lawsuit against an officer, then the city doesn't cover it. He has to take care of that. So I mean, it's up. What it is the deeper pockets theory. You go after the person that has
has the most money. Yeah, absolutely.
Which is normally always the city. So you can't. You have the choice to file a lawsuit against these 3 officers if you wanted to, a civil suit. But instead, they went after the city because they have deeper pockets.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that also doesn't change outcomes. Yeah, the issue is the law that allows for this type of thing to happen. So we have to tackle.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that you can't go to the taxpayer. You had like if there was law like you can't sue the taxpayer, you have to. I'm just reading an article that said this, and the article is basically saying you strictly the top is the police department, so they're responsible of that money. So because now that they're responsible for the money, then you're putting like if you knew you were on the hook for this money, you're gonna do everything you can to not pay this thing out.
Right, and that's kind of the same thing as another law that actually allowed for the execution of the warrant with the exclusionary rule. Right. So basically it allowed for all of this to happen, period. Right. So, with the exclusionary rule, basically it says that you don't have to have it doesn't have to be a legal warrant, like based on what the law states. Like if they have a cause to go there and there's a warrant that's issued.
You have to establish probable cause to determine that there is a nexus to that location.
Right. But all the evidence doesn't necessarily have to be there for you to get a no-knock or not, whatever it is. You don't have to actually have all that evidence. And because there's an exclusionary...
you don't have to know what's exactly inside the location.
I'm just saying that even if there wasn't enough evidence to get that type of a warrant, if you execute it, the exclusionary rule says that you can still use the evidence against the person because that rule just exists. It doesn't. So it's not a deterrent for police officers to do a better job at trying to present evidence to be able to.
That's not really what exclusionary rule is.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, hold on. Let me finish this article and then I will let y'all talk. The next thing this article said that when police officers are known to have misconduct, they can't just go. It has to be a database and I don't know if it is or isn't, but it needs to be in a database. But the point of this database is they can't go to another precinct and just get hired again.
Another department?
Yeah, another department and get hired again. So these are some steps from my readings also that can happen. Also, we talked about when it has like social issues, mental health issues, that police officers aren't trained to handle these situations. So they shouldn't be going out. Maybe they should be backup if things go bad. But they shouldn't be the main, because we've seen a few times where, like I said, I think he had autism like about a week ago and he was killed. Elijah McClain. He was like they're not equipped to handle the mental health situation. So going into your question, Shar. So I guess I'll ask EJ and Raw. Y'all can finish it up. Like, what is reform look like?
I mean, we've talked about this. Like even with the mental health part, we talked about. I do believe that we should have social workers assigned to us. But these certain situations where you have a situation where you have to go out and deal with someone that has a mental capacity that you can't deal with, you should be able to have that social worker there that can help you and or take over and handle the situation. Now, if the situation turns violent, then you still have the officer there that who is trained to deal with that situation. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but like we also talked about that, it's going to take money.
Mm-hmm.
All that takes money. Reform to me really is we really have to really look at the criminal justice laws, criminal justice system. So we have to we look at all the laws that we have on our books and really start going through them and see if they're feasible to this time.
Right, absolutely. Each state should be looking at all their laws
and see if they're feasible to this time. We as police officers need better training in certain aspects of our job, most aspects of our job, but that also requires money and time.
I mean, I think it's important to talk about yes, we know all this stuff is going to come at a cost, but I think it's important to put on the table what are solutions without we don't necessarily need to figure out what everything is. We can just say, what are those solutions?
And then that's the thing, like we need to come together as a community and we say, what do you want us to see us do better? And we have to also be able to openly explain why things are done the way that we're done. Like me and Daryl talk about it all the time. We have done a horrible job of explaining situations. We've done a horrible job of explaining the law. Mm-hmm. So we get on TV and we say, hey, well, we're not going to charge them X, Y, and Z. And we don't go into detail of what the law is and why they came up with that description. What are the elements to lead them to this situation to believe that this was the right charge or the wrong charge? You know what I mean? So it's a better, we have to have a better communication from both sides. If we don't have that kind of communication, then nothing's going to change and nothing's going to work. You're still going to distrust us, and we're still going to do the same old thing we've been doing for like 100 years. Right. So my thing, it starts with conversations, and it starts with looking at the criminal justice system. And and then it trickles down from there.
Right. What about you, EJ?
I mean, I agree with everything that's being said. I think that we do need more police accountability. I think, again, going back to this exclusionary rule that did not apply, meaning basically they got evidence from an illegal search that it couldn't be used against them. Why can they do that? Because it's a law, right? And why can they follow that? Because a judge said that it was okay to do that. And why can the judge do that? Because that's a part of the legal system. So those are the laws. They need to be held accountable. Not only the police, but also the judge that are issuing these warrants should also. This is my opinion. This is my opinion on a solution. I mean, you can say whatever points you want. I feel like these people need to be held accountable, right?
Right.
They need to be held accountable in a way that will make them do their jobs better, right? So if there's a penalty for something, people tend to take more time to make sure that it's done right. And I don't think there's anything wrong with penalizing police officers if they are requesting warrants. There's not enough evidence in that instance, then they can't do that. They can't do that search. They need to come back with more evidence, be able to do that. While it might affect other things in an investigation, I feel like if you're investigating someone, you should have sufficient enough evidence. If there's not sufficient enough evidence, you shouldn't get a warrant.
Right.
Also for judges, that if you're reviewing their caseload,
signing
off on them, and there's not evidence to support why they gave that warrant, then of course, yeah, there needs to be a penalty for them. The laws need to change as well. I feel like there is a state that has a 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. guideline for whenever they can actually go can execute a warrant. So I think there should be some guidelines for that. Might that impede the police officer's job? But guess what? At the end of the day, we want police officers to be the best that they can be. So, like, honestly, doing things around certain times.
Right.
There should be some guidelines more about going outside of that.
No, I agree. So
you said something about exclusionary rule, right?
Yeah.
What did you say the exclusionary rule was?
So the exclusionary rule prevents the government from using most evidence gathered in violation of the United States Constitution. So example, the exclusionary rule applies to evidence gained from an unreasonable search or seizure in violation of the Fourth Amendment, it is excluded from the instance that we're talking about, meaning they could still use that evidence.
No, they can't.
Because it's not.
They can't use it. They can't use it for anything because that it becomes a fruit of the poisonous tree. If it was determined that this warrant, say they found stuff in the house and the search warrant was invalid, they cannot use that at trial. That's the exclusionary rule. It prohibits you from using evidence at a criminal investigation.
It does not apply in this instance.
We don't know yet.
No, it does not apply in this instance.
But there was nothing found.
Yeah.
To exclude.
Regardless of that, it doesn't apply in this instance.
But why bring up the exclusionary rule if it doesn't apply in this instance? Because there's nothing was found.
And it's not just this case; it's lots of cases, right? So if you have some type of penalty, meaning you can't.
But there is a penalty for violating the Fourth Amendment. You go to prison.
If they found something,
you go to federal prison.
If they found something in this particular incident, the exclusionary rule does not apply. So they would be able to use that information.
But we don't know if the exclusionary rule would apply until the FBI finishes their investigation to determine if there was a Fourth Amendment violation.
We don't know yet.
Okay, cool.
No.
So go ahead, Sean.
I don't think. I mean, that's not my understanding, but okay.
Yeah, the exclusionary rule is basically you can't use any evidence that you found illegally in a proceeding in a court proceeding.
Right, and if I knock on somebody's door, does not apply in this instance.
Because there was nothing found to use, and then you don't know if the search warrant was invalid because the FBI hasn't finished their investigation into the Fourth Amendment violation.
So you may be right. It's just that we don't know yet.
Right. But then, no, you still can't use it because there's nothing there.
Well, you know what I mean.
They didn't find anything.
You know what I mean.
But he's saying the search could still be invalid, but the exclusionary rule because there was no actual evidence found.
Right.
But in your point, it could still be from charging.
I'm saying from a legal standpoint, if this is what I'm saying, and I don't, maybe you're missing my point. I'm just talking in general terms. It does not apply. So if a judge grants a no-knock, right?
Right.
That's not merited.
Okay.
And it goes against what the Supreme Court says, right?
Right.
And they do that often because they do it whenever they feel like they want to. They can issue a no-knock even if there's not enough evidence.
No, they don't.
But just finish your statement.
They can issue a no-knock even if there's not enough evidence to support it, which happens. Let's just say that happens. There is not going to be any harm done if there's no knock position on the warrant if it's illegal. So if they are given that warrant from a judge and the way that they had given it to them is considered illegal by definition, that rule does not apply. So the exclusionary rule does not apply to that situation, and that's the problem. So means basically police officers can present a warrant to a judge, and if the judge still deems that they want to give that warrant out to them, regardless if they have enough evidence, there's not a deterrent for them to do a better job.
There is. It's called the Fourth Amendment. Illegal search and seizure. You go to prison for that.
Okay.
That is the deterrent. Okay.
So
you don't understand how hard it is to get a search warrant because no judge wants to sign a warrant that is going to be going up to the Supreme Court or wherever and there's a Fourth Amendment violation.
But this happens all the time.
It does not happen.
There was actually an investigation in a city where there was 105 warrants. Of them, 99 were no-knock warrants that were approved by judges. 76% of them did not have enough evidence to support it being a no-knock in that investigation. 76% of the time.
Okay, so you're using one city out of...
I'm just saying it happens. And
but you're saying it happens all the time, but that's not all the time. You're using one city out of all the cities that we have.
But, I think what Edward is saying it does happen. So we don't know.
But the deterrent is prison.
Yeah, but we don't know the amount.
But what I'm saying is the thing is
we can't say a number of the amount.
But what I'm saying is there's not.
But we can't say that we can't say either.
Either way, yes, we can't say either one.
And then you're saying there's not a deterrent. There is a deterrent. Federal prison.
So how many police officers do you know that have gone to prison for these types of incidents?
The situation that happened on Neal Street when they killed that old lady in the house and they had an illegal search warrant, they're all in federal prison.
All right, Shar, go ahead.
Federal prison.
Shar, go. Do you want to add?
No, I mean you did ask a question about what? Because we went on a different tangent based off the question.
I forgot. No, I do think what both of y'all are saying is extremely important. I think both of y'all have.
I think it's just
nuggets.
Marty's getting on my nerves, honestly, because you want to talk about your points, and everyone has to listen to your points. But when someone else presents something that you don't necessarily agree with, your thing is to shut down, just like you're doing right now, which is the problem.
I'm not shutting down.
We all need to be talking about our points. If I don't agree with Rodden's points, that's completely fine. But what's happening is I'm getting educated on some things that I may not know. It may not change my viewpoint on what I feel like is important, but you shutting down is the problem with Americans. But you complain about Black Americans, but you complain about Black people not being able to have these conversations. So
no, that's not what I'm shutting down about. What I'm shutting down about is that there's not going to be any movement in this conversation, and no one's going to move to the middle. That's my problem, because you literally made a statement about one city based off and made that statement because this is how I think. I'm a statistician. You made a statement about one city and then came up with the conclusion that overall this happens a lot, and that what shuts me down. Okay, because it really has to be based off an overall look of a perspective or a good enough sample of something to make a conclusion about something.
That's true, but also one city is too many. That's true.
But let me be clear on that. You can make that statement about everything in life. Is what I'm saying.
No, but
you can say for example, like I work in a manufacturing plant. If I have one defect, the whole concept that we talk about is one defect is too many. Mm-hmm. But in actuality, you don't live in a perfect system. So so when you don't live in a perfect system, you put controls and actions in place that any event that something bad happens, you have something in place to address it. So yes, you make the statement you make of one city is too many, but from a bigger perspective, most likely something is going to go wrong or something's not going to be done correctly all the time.
But to his point is he uses that on either side. When he wants to talk about something, he can say, "Oh, well, Black people, you have literally no stats that you said you need stats all the time. You will literally sit here." But I'm just saying, I'm just using his logic to understand how you can figure out like when you want to say and use things. It's kind of the same thing. It's kind of like an oxymoron. So on one side of the table, you say, well, Black people don't want to get together, can't get along, we can't get on one accord. So do you know that all Black people don't want to get along and don't want to get on? Where are your stats? You can't say that in this instance and then say, okay, when we're talking about police, that's just one city and that's just one example, and that just negates your argument because you don't have enough evidence. How can you have enough evidence to make a general statement about Black people? And when I'm saying something about police in one instance, which if it's happening in one city, the likelihood of it happening in another city is just about as equally probable.
But didn't you just say that earlier before we started that when you look at all of the urban communities and all the different bigger cities that you look at, that you have the same results over and over again. So in that statement, you literally look at multiple cities, specifically urban areas that are highly populated with Black. These were your words, right? I didn't say these words. You did. You said you look at all the cities where there's...
Your point is to answer something that you're not answering. You're just going on another tangent.
But what I'm saying is that, isn't that data, based off of what you just said, that you're looking at all...
But where's your data? You just changed your position. You just said, I use stats. Where's your stats to tell me that all Black people don't want to work together, are not working together?
I never said all.
Okay. So
yeah, but we're also going on a different topic.
Yeah, a whole different topic. So back to what you were saying, Edward. So you said 76%.
Right, it was a very high percent of it.
So my question is, how many did those go to appeals, the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court?
I don't know, and I'm saying that I'm saying there's variance, and I'm just saying. Yeah,
so back to what you were saying is like, okay, so with that, a lot of that stuff could have been overturned, and then a prosecution could have went on something totally different. You know what I mean? So the biggest thing you don't want to ever do as a police officer is violate the Fourth Amendment. Illegal search and seizure is the biggest thing you do not want to do because that is federal time, automatic, see you later, go to jail.
Right, but what I'm saying, my only point is to say that the legal system protects police officers more than it will protect citizens, especially...
In some, I would say in some instances.
Yeah, it's more favored toward law enforcement because the law is in place to administer it, right? So the people that are administering the law it's more in favor to their actions than it is to the citizens, which is kind of not what you want. But if you read the law, it is that way.
It's done like that because of the job that we do. It's inherently dangerous, and certain things will happen during your job. Like, i.e., this whole situation, this whole case. Mm-hmm. You serve a search warrant, which is a very dangerous thing to do because you don't know what the mindset of the person on the other side of the door is going to be. So, like, her boyfriend, who had a legal gun, who thought her ex-boyfriend was breaking in or they were getting robbed, shot at the police. He has a right to defend his home.
Right.
That's why he was not charged.
Right.
So when they fire back, they also have a right to defend themselves.
Right.
Right. So, yes, in some instances, the law do favor us when it comes to our job. Mm-hmm. And then there's other instances when it's more favorable to the citizens than it is to us. You know what I mean? You may not agree.
I just don't see it. That's why.
Right. You might not see it because it's not highly publicized. When we do something, especially when it's in the Black community, it's going to be highly publicized. It's going to be scrutiny because justly so, we've done stuff in the past that we deserve this kind of scrutiny at times. So everything isn't shown. So it's like, for us, we can do certain things and we'll definitely get prison time because we have an oath of office to uphold. And when you violate that oath of office, that is automatically in Georgia 5 years.
So,
and then that adds on to what else you did. So where other people might get probation, we're going to prison.
So, Shar brought up a point though about Black people and us running to our corners and not being on one accord, and that would lead me. This is going to be a conclusion. This is going to be the last question I want to ask you guys, but I think it's a very important one. Do you guys feel so? Let me first introduce Daniel Cameron. He's the Attorney General of Kentucky, Louisville. He is the first Black African American to be an AG in Kentucky and the first Republican since 1948. As fellow Black people, is it right for us to criticize him in the manner that we are doing?
Can I go first?
Yes, absolutely.
I don't like the aspect of calling him a coon and all that stuff when he did his job. You don't know if he liked or disliked doing what he had to do, but he did his job. He stayed within the law. We may argue and disagree about what the law is or if it should be changed and all that stuff, but he stayed within the law. He presented to the grand jury every element for every charge that they could possibly think of, and the grand jury decided to go with that specific charge. It's not his fault that the law is written the way it's written. Mm-hmm. So for us to blatantly blame him like he's the person that did it, he's not. The grand jury made a decision. He didn't make that decision.
But he's also, and this is where me and you disagree with it, and I'm going to let y'all jump into this one. Because it's on brand of he's shown what his brand is, and that's what he should do. Shar spoke about this. He shouldn't have spoken to RNC
at all.
He shouldn't have did that.
Yeah.
Because the problem is by doing this. No, it is fair because you sat there and chose a side. You understand what the right wing has viewed Black people. So you did that. He has showed time and time again that he has separated himself from Black people. So for you to do it, it's perfectly fair. We can criticize whoever we want.
Mm-hmm. That's just the American way. We all got.
Yeah, we can criticize whoever we want, but
we're not sensitive.
But yes, he did some stuff that is stupid that he should not have done. So maybe he was doing his actual job, but leading up to that was idiotic for him to do that.
No, I don't disagree with you, but I don't feel like he should be demonized for doing his job. Now, if you want to feel some type of way about him speaking to RNC and separating himself from Black people, then fine, that's cool. But in this specific case, you can't do that.
I think in any type of role, when it comes to military, when it comes to when you're having to be a defender of justice or actually present, your job is to maintain, regardless if you're Republican or Democrat, to remain objective, unbiased, unbiasedness, I guess. And he did a horrible job of doing that.
Right.
And
but this is also an election year.
I understand that,
but you shouldn't have did it. You still shouldn't have did it.
Your job should be greater than what's going on in the election because you were fully aware of the importance of this case. And like we said, people run to their sides, and he ran to a side, and that's what. And granted, when he may have been fair in presenting his findings to the grand jury, however, his optics in terms of what he was doing was completely derailed his job. Period. Just like what Daryl said with Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo may have you had a person who worked. Your banker may be black, but what the CEO did in terms of his statement changed the optics of what was really going on, and people are going to go off of everything based off of optics, and he did, and that's just where he messed up.
And then Wells Fargo might not believe in it. They believe in diversity, but because your CEO did this, now the whole optics of Wells Fargo have changed.
So I get it. I mean, I get his aspect of that. But we also got to think, people do things for gain. You know what I mean? It's an election year, so on both sides, people are going to run to their corners, and they're going to make a decision based on their corners so that they can be seen in a certain light, and hopefully, whoever their candidate they're backing would be able to help them progress in their political career.
And he showed that. So then, but in that side is not favorable to black people, and it's not just that. It's everything.
But there's also
and I'm going to be
to black people.
Yes, I agree that, but Republicans don't. Republicans do not even acknowledge the plight of the black people. But what I'm saying is, even the little stuff he does, and this is going to be hypocritical, and this is wrong to say, but it still adds to it. Even him having a white wife, all of that adds to that. All of that is a totality of it. He has Mitch McConnell's granddaughter. It just adds to it. It adds to that what he did in his verdict was on brand of who he has shown to be.
But to your point, I don't want to question who he married. However, in his situation, because of not who he married in terms of her race, but who he married in terms of who she's connected to,
relative, right?
Yeah, that should have been more of a intention for him to show objectivity as much as possible, so no one can use the example use that against him. But to your point, like even saying that he's the attorney general, this is why us going back and forth about this frustrates me, because you said something about him that it was for personal gain, and although I know this is definitely a utopian concept, but it frustrates me that the people that we elect in place are doing things out of personal gain and not for the better of our country. So for us to go back and forth about what policemen do and what should be done in terms of what society does is kind of a moot point if the people that we have elected in position are doing stuff for their own personal gain.
Absolutely.
So I guess that's part of my opportunity to voice my frustration. But yeah, so that's kind of why. So we just got to do a better job of electing people in place that represents us. But I guess the question to that is that, are we going to do that as a unified America or as a unified black people?
Unified black people.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the direction that we need to decide as a people to do. And what determine on whatever direction we go in that crossroad is going to take some action that's going to require sacrifice, regardless of what direction we go. And that's hopefully the conversation that we can one day have in terms of what that looks like.
Yeah, what it needs to be is we need to be unified black people first, and then we all need to say we all are going with this candidate. Yeah. And that's what we need to do. But EJ, how do you feel about it?
I mean, I think I've made my point pretty clear what position I'm on. I think as far as Cameron, I think that he did what he's trying to do is just kind of make it go away. Like his statements are to like, okay, black people, this has happened, it's unfortunate, let's just like kind of make it go away.
Yeah, because even in the press conference, he was like trying to bring up, I'm black. Right. Like he kept trying to say that, like, duh, we can obviously see that.
Like it's not like we can't see that you're black, but it's just, I think that I agree with what Moore said. I agree with what you and also Rodden said in that instance. And I feel like there was a lot of kind of like victim blaming. In this instance, Breonna Taylor and Walker were the victims. We do have to talk about everything that goes on with it. I think my perspective is how, in this instance, can we prevent future Breonna Taylors?
Absolutely. Because that's the thing, man, and this is where I'm going to end it on. The funny thing is, like, I wrote a bunch of lists down, and the problem is the way things are going is going to be another Breonna Taylor. I mean, we seen George Floyd, Jacob Blake, Rashard Brooks, Elijah McClain, Sean Bell, Tamir Rice, Freddie Gray, Eric Gardner. We had this conversation all the time. Go back to Rodney King, Emmett Till. Like we keep having the same conversation, and we need to figure out once and for all a solution, because not only I think we all agree policing is a tough job, but we also want a option of how we want to be policed. Like if we feel like, and that's what going into the laws and figuring out what laws that need to be changed. So we all need to put our hand in this, and that's probably is the only solution, right? We have to just all of us come together. We need to look at every single law needs to be looked at, every single one, right? And we need to decide if we're going to.
And we need to be able to have tough conversations without us just going back and forth about an argument. Yeah, my position's not going to change. Maybe Morg's position's not going to change. Maybe Rodden's position. But we need to come together on a consensus on what's best for our communities. And that's really the more important piece of it. We don't have to agree on our positions, but we need to agree on what's best for us as Black people.
But we also need to say that everything we're doing, even though we might disagree, we're all trying to progress the Black community.
It's better for us.
Go ahead, Rob.
So, I mean, like everyone said, we always ain't gonna always agree. But what it is more of an understanding, educational moment. Some parts you understand better now because I explained it. You explain certain things, I understand it better. You understand? That's the thing. It's not always going to be kumbaya. It's going to be arguments. It's going to be yelling.
It's going to be heated.
Yeah, it's going to be heated.
It's going to be passionate.
But the point is, that's what we need if we want to get to a certain point. People aren't having open, honest conversations anymore. That's the problem. If we don't have open, honest conversations and try to walk away from a little more educated than we came in, we're not going to get anywhere. And even so, with you talking about being another Breonna Taylor, probably will be. But the same law that protected them, the officers in this case, protects every citizen. You always have the right to defend yourself when you feel like your life is threatened. But warrants are extremely dangerous. And things do happen that you don't plan for. You go into it with a warrior mindset, and you hope that you don't even have to use it. Training is important. Understanding who you're with is important. Understanding the situation and the location is important. So like I said, I'm gonna wait for the affidavit, for everything to see what it is and dissect and then go from there. I don't know what their training is like. I don't know what a department does in the aspect of having people execute search warrants or whatever. But that's something that they're going to have to review and really think about. To your point, people do lie on people do lie on warrants, and they go to prison for that. Because if they're caught,
if it's the big thing.
If they're caught, but it's more than you think. Because
I want to see that more. I think I would feel validated if we saw that more.
No, it's more than you think. There's we get a lot of case law, so a lot of case law get pushed out, and it's not usually pushed out to the public because most people don't care. But we get a lot of case law where you have Supreme Court decisions or circuit court decisions where they decide that they violated certain rights, and those people end up in prison. That's everything. That's one thing that I can definitely speak about this. Every officer is afraid of a Fourth Amendment, a constitutional violation, because there's no coming back from that. That's prison time.
And I guess I'm just starting to add one more thing. I guess to add, when we're researching and when we're gaining information, I think it's important that we get information that not only supports our position but also opposes our position as well. And because in every case, when everyone's looking at this case in terms of with Breonna Taylor, we're probably all looking at it from the angle to get information that supports our position.
Absolutely.
And not even look at the other side of actually saying where there can be an alternative opposing view that actually supports the other opinion. So I would encourage people to do that and take as much emotion out of it as they possibly can. Although I know that's hard because of the history of our country, but just try to look at it from a position of the possibility that it may go against what you believe should happen.
Yeah, but also if it goes against, it doesn't mean that the prevalence is incorrect. It's still, regardless of the outcome of this, it still need police reform. I think we all agree with that.
Yeah.
So regardless,
criminal justice.
Yeah, criminal justice reform. Regardless of the outcome of this, regardless of Jacob Blake, regardless of Rashad Brooks, regardless of the George Floyd, we're still saying it still needs reform and all around. Mm-hmm. Is that it, guys? That was our most. Is everybody good? Real quick.
Good. I mean, I don't take anything personal. I think there are conversations that need to be had. So I don't get frustrated with it. I am passionate about what I say, but at the end of the day, my opinion is still my opinion.
Right.
And
absolutely.
I'm gonna learn from other people, but my opinion's still it. It's just that it's a conversation, and we move on. Mm-hmm. We have the conversations. We take in little grains of of knowledge that we need, and we help ourselves just be more rounded. Just like Morgan said, we should be more rounded and know more about it. And I always am okay with learning.
Right. More. And what I would love to do, and just an idea I'm gonna throw out here, is that I think voting, or I think we're all saying voting is extremely important, right?
Yep.
I think we need to do a podcast where we actually talk about the candidates, especially the ones in Georgia, the ones that impact us, and so we can understand who we're voting for.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
So maybe that's something that we can look. I just thought about that. I just want to.
Or even just post it to one of our many platforms.
Yes, the many platforms.
Such as Edward.
Yes, please. What are our many platforms?
I was doing this, and Morgan knows them better than I do. Morgan will get.
I assume he didn't know.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, EJ. I'm sorry, EJ. Yeah.
Morgan only calls me Edward when
I'm upset with it. Yeah.
Please, what are our various platforms?
So our website is www.lessofamanpodcast.com. Our Instagram is
at Less of a Man Podcast. Our YouTube channel, our Anchor, our Apple Podcast,
our SoundCloud.
We have a lot of platforms, people. So
our Twitter.
Twitter. We do have Twitter.
We have Twitter?
Yes, we do. We don't use it, but we do have Twitter.
Like we should all be on there.
Yeah, it's exhausting just for Facebook and Instagram. So I don't even want to think about adding Twitter to the mix, but
all of them are Less of a Man. Either Less of a Man or Less of a Man.
Yeah, I think Twitter is Less of a Man. Yeah.
Yeah, so please check us out on the many platforms. Like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you think, especially about this one. This is a heated conversation. Let us know what you think. And
lastly, we just put out a good video about message of voices of black men. Yes. Check that out. Share, comment. Please. Let us know how you feel about it.
It gives some traction too.
Yep. So definitely check that out on all the platforms.
Yes. Thank you. So until next time, guys. Peace.